The video game industry is easily one of the most blatantly avaricious capitalist hellscapes of any entertainment medium. When it comes to gaming as a product, publishers of big-budget games partake in various sleazy monetization schemes like microtransactions, loot boxes with gambling mechanics, and actively chase the white whale, that is, the live service trend, in order to squeeze every conceivable dollar out of their customers as if they were the last drop of mayonnaise in a squeeze bottle. And they do this all at the expense of the products that these publishers produce. After all, these games often manufacture reasons that force the player to spend real-world money if they want to have a more rewarding gameplay experience, instead of having the games be fun and enriching experiences in and of themselves. With these monetization practices, games are often devalued as an artistic medium for a quick buck, because the video game industry knows no shame. No low is too low for it. Insert a joke about Anthem here. But the industry's brazen disregard for creative merit does not just affect the customer. In fact, employees are affected by the game industry's corruption as well. As many of us have heard by now, many big-name game companies have engaged in abusive practices. Whether it be crunch, i.e. mandatory overtime that stretches over periods of weeks or possibly months, being underpaid, sexual harassment, or other types of abuse, the people that create the games in this medium that we all love so much are often subject to work conditions so hellish that even Stanley Kubrick would have thought they were a touch too much. Because honestly, the game industry really is that bad. And truly, all the workers in this industry pay the price for these horrid working conditions that chew up talented developers and spit them out with gusto. It's a sad state of affairs, and due to this, workers deserve so much better. This is especially true for those in quality assurance. Quality assurance, better known as the abbreviated QA, is arguably the most thankless job in the video game industry, and that's saying something. As an occupation, QA testers play the various builds of any given game in development and report on how the game plays and if there are any game-breaking exploits and bugs and glitches and such. It's actually a very important job. Yet, despite this, QA testers are often considered lesser developers. They are paid less, often work way too many hours of overtime, are often relegated to contract work. The only time customers acknowledge them is if there's something wrong with the game, and there's often outright hostility against them internally, both by the executive class and even fellow co-workers. Hell, in the case of Cyberpunk 2077, i.e. the game that had one of the most infamously broken launches in video game history, the higher-ups threw the QA department under the bus by claiming that, to quote, testing did not show a big part of Cyberpunk's issues, end quote. Which, sounds like complete bullshit considering how bug-ridden Cyberpunk 2077 was when it originally launched. Like, you did not need NASA's big honking space telescope to spot how broken that game was. The higher-ups absolutely had to have known that that game wasn't ready for release. And with that, QA is a hard job that is often undervalued by both executives and customers alike as being a lower-rung job, even though their said job is obviously important. Otherwise, developers and publishers wouldn't have needed to hire people for that said fucking job. Obviously. QA is a hard occupation, a repetitive grind of long hours and game testing that would test anyone's patience, yet their work is too often underappreciated and undercompensated, even more so than other developers at the same company. They are routinely exploited. Now, before we go any further, let me discuss the topic of industry-wide unionization. With the regular and frequent reports of workplace malpractice, crunch that can psychologically damage workers, routine layoffs even in years where publishers were turning a massive profit, or sexual harassment or other abuses at the workplace, commentators, pundits, and critics like myself have been calling for game industry unionization for years. After all, the monetary and occupational power is stacked on the side of the executive class. And through their actions, executives and higher-ups at these publishers and developers take advantage of the workers beneath them for their own gain. It's a disgusting industry, and one that needs unions that can help level the playing field. However, there is some good news here. A few QA teams in the industry have had enough and have started to unionize. One of these teams was at Raven Software, a subsidiary of Activision Blizzard and now Microsoft, that voted to unionize last month. And while Activision Blizzard originally engaged in some union-busting tactics, the union representing Raven Software's QA team has now been officially recognized by Activision Blizzard and Microsoft, and it was a long time coming. Another unionization success story can be found in Electronic Arts at Bioware's QA department, which are contract workers via Keyword Studios. Just a few days ago, QA testers at the Dragon Age and Mass Effect developer voted 16-0 through in order to form a union. The crux of this unionization focused on low pay, no paid time off, which is problematic in our COVID era, and how the QA department had to return to office work without any extra compensation, accounting for the increased cost of the commute. And as a result, this union was more than warranted. It was honestly glorious and long overdue. Admittedly though, these unions might sound like small steps. QA workers are only a small section of the development workforce after all, but let's not overlook how big of a deal this is, because truly this is an important occasion. Raven Software and Bioware are in the big budget AAA video game space, and by voting to unionize, the Raven Software QA department has formed the first major video game union in America, and the QA department at Bioware has formed the first major video game union in Canada. These are huge breakthroughs that many critics of this industry have been desiring for years. We are actually making progress, and while there are a few North American unions at smaller developers and publishers, see Vodio Games, the unions at Raven Software and Bioware are the first time unions have formed in the big budget arena. They are game changers. QA testers are responsible for this momentous occasion. Yes, the very developers who are shit on the most, both internally and externally in the video game industry, as well as being the most exploited workers in an industry where workplace exploitation is regular occurrence. Truly, this success is due to the QA testers at Raven Software and Bioware. And that's really important to note, especially considering that these QA teams have been through the ringer the last few years. After all, Raven Software is under Activision Blizzard's sexually abusive and greedy umbrella, and Bioware's QA team is part of a company with crunch so bad that workers had mental breakdowns dubbed stress casualties when working on Anthem. And I know I joke about Anthem a lot on here, but in this context, wow, can that game get fucked. Yet after all that nonsense, the QA workers at Raven Software and Bioware now actually have some recourse to counteract the continual mistreatment that they often receive, and I can't help but be happy about that. It's a good thing. Through it all, I truly commend the QA testers at Raven Software and Bioware for their strength. After all, unionizing can be difficult in today's modern pro-capitalist political climate that favors businesses over the common person. Yet these workers said enough is enough. They've had to deal with enough bullshit. They've had to endure truly broken work environments so egregious that they make broken games seem like toys in comparison, which, let's be honest, they are. And when faced with these awful working conditions, the QA workers at these companies responded. With unionization, they are ironically assuring the quality of their workplace. And honestly, someday soon, I hope that the rest of the industry follow suit. And with that, that was the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like rating, share, subscribe, ring the bell, and leave a comment telling me what you think of QA, the video game industry, and unionization. Also, please consider contributing to my Patreon page. $1 a month gets you onto my Discord server, and $5 a month allows you to start making review requests. The link to my Patreon is in the description. And speaking of Patreon, I just want to thank my patrons, particularly my high tier ones in David Samantha Devlin, Mom, and Morgan. Thank you so much for supporting what I do. Love y'all.